This is Plant-Based Briefing, Tactics in Practice, The Science of Social Media Advocacy, Part 1 by Björn Ólafsson at faunalytics.org. And I'm Marian Erickson. This is the Plant-Based Podcast where I research and get permission to narrate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And today's article is longer than that, so it's a two-parter. I'll read Part 1 today and tune in tomorrow for the second half. So now let's get to today's Plant-Based Briefing. Tactics in Practice, The Science of Social Media Advocacy, Part 1 by Björn Ólafsson at faunalytics.org. Faunalytics research liaison Björn Ólafsson takes a deep dive into the use of social media channels for effective animal advocacy. Whether you're a novice or a pro, you will learn something. This is the first edition of Faunalytics Tactics in Practice, a series of blogs where we'll explore the science behind different animal advocacy tactics and how you can make the most of them for animals. Get that share button ready because this blog dives into social media advocacy. How do advocates use social media? Looking beyond the animal movement, advocacy groups in general use social media to strengthen outreach efforts, facilitate organizational growth, learn how their messaging is working in real time, and quickly mobilize for collective action, and of course, to persuade people that their cause is ethically correct. Within the farmed animal movement, one researcher defined 3 pathways of social media's influence on agriculture and food sustainability. Although these pathways are specific to one area of advocacy, the ideas may also apply to the wider movement. 1. Social media spreads information rapidly to a large audience. This can include spreading undercover investigations, plant-based product updates, and more. Importantly, social media also connects the many stakeholders involved in improving animal welfare. For example, policymakers, industry leaders, and everyday citizens who can affect policies. 2. Social media enables advocates to connect based on shared concerns, even if they don't hold the same beliefs. For example, farmed animal advocates can use social media to connect with aligned environmental or food justice groups to organize events, discuss common challenges, and coordinate activism efforts. And 3. Monitor stakeholders' activities and shape the conversation. Within the context of vegan advocacy, this may involve marketing new products to consumers or shaping food trends. More broadly, it may also involve learning more about our adversaries' tactics, tracking the public's reactions to major campaigns, and weighing in on controversial animal issues to frame how they're discussed. As part of our research, we spoke to 3 social media experts in the movement who told us that their techniques are designed to influence individual people to become vegan or otherwise take pro-animal actions, as well as encouraging a cultural shift in how we perceive animals. With this view, social media can be used as both a short-term and long-term intervention tool. Is social media an effective tactic? If you're reading this, chances are that you've either encountered or used social media in your advocacy. One of its key advantages is obvious. It's possibly one of the most affordable and therefore accessible interventions available. But is this reason enough to prioritize it over other forms of activism? In our original study of the relative effectiveness of different advocacy techniques linked here, we concluded that social media is a particularly visible form of animal advocacy. For example, just over half of U.S. respondents said they had seen a pro-animal social media post within the past 5 years or so, making it the 4th most encountered type of advocacy out of 16 interventions that we studied. However, only 39% of respondents who said they had reduced their meat consumption did so because of a social media post, making social media the 9th most effective intervention out of the 16. Likewise, compared to other interventions, relatively few participants reported that a social media post had motivated them to seek out more information on animal welfare, look more closely at welfare labels, or have sympathy for animals. This indicates that social media's reach can be higher than its impact. Likewise, other researchers argue that social media can only create weak ties. In other words, earning 1 million followers on a pro-animal account doesn't mean you can rally them all to go to a protest or vote for a pro-animal candidate. However, social media may be the first step in a series of actions that lead someone to your cause. For example, it can make someone contemplate factory farming before they eventually decide to go vegan. Clicks aren't everything, but they might be a start. It's also important to understand how social media impacts different demographic groups. For example, while few studies have considered how historically disadvantaged groups engage with social media advocacy, Faunalytics has found that Black and Hispanic and Latino AX people are more likely to have seen pro-animal social media posts and are more willing to share a pro-animal post than people of other racial and ethnic groups. Although we can't confirm why, research has found that U.S. minority groups tend to use social media more often than white people. This suggests that social media may be particularly effective for activists working with BIPOC communities. Another study found that women and older individuals are especially likely to click on social media advertisements related to animal advocacy. The same study found that animal messaging was twice as likely to generate clicks and newsletter signups than health-based or environmental narratives. Can social media impact real-world choices? Probably yes. For example, a study on animal trafficking in Thailand showed that targeted ads reduced people's intention to purchase ivory and tiger parts by 40%, while another study found that digital influencers may encourage non-vegans to buy vegan cosmetic products. And a study on Facebook found that a chatbot that sent daily messages about meat consumption was able to reduce meat consumption when environmental messaging was used. Despite how it may seem, research suggests that pro-vegan messaging may be more common than anti-vegan messaging on social media. In our Twitter analysis, tweets with the word vegan were classified as positive 54% of the time, negative 21% of the time, and neutral 25% of the time. Meanwhile, flexible dietary terms like reducitarian and veganuary were more often classified as positive than strict dietary terms like vegan. Similarly, an analysis of veganuary's online presence found that positive words were used 1.6 times more often than negative words to describe the campaign. Some researchers have argued that social media also has a unique advantage, the ability to center animals. An Instagram post from the perspective of a farmed pig can potentially do more to give voice to her suffering than a petition or a protest. In this way, social media can set the narrative to be more inclusive to animal voices. All in all, while social media should not be the only method used by advocates, its low cost, high reach, and potential impact suggest it can be an effective tool to help animals. Improving your social media advocacy. So it turns out social media advocacy has plenty of advantages. That's great, but these advocacy tools are only effective when used well. That's where our advice comes in. We encourage you to read through all of our evidence-based recommendations. Our findings might surprise you. Don't preach to the choir. One danger of social media is the preaching to the choir effect. In other words, that the people who see animal content on social media are already vegan. For example, our 2015 analysis of the SAVE movement's social media impact found that almost 75% of survey participants were already following a vegan diet. However, social media sites have been shifting to include more sharing functions like Instagram's Story Share feature or algorithm-driven content like TikTok's For You page. The social media experts we spoke to highlighted the algorithms in particular as key to their strategy. Basically, the algorithms share posts with people with similar interests, allowing a post to stretch far beyond one's follower count. For example, a behind-the-scenes look at recent posts by a social media account with nearly 27,000 followers showed that more than 99% of its reach was to non-followers. With these systems, it's easy to imagine, say, a health-conscious person scrolling into a series of vegan recipes, or a dog lover stumbling into Esther the pig. We don't have data to prove this due to the black box nature of these social media algorithms, but it's likely that the non-followers are less likely to be vegan than the followers, and thus a prime target audience. Another more expensive way to avoid preaching to the choir involves using targeted ads to maximize the chances you reach non-vegans. Understanding your audience is tricky, as social media corporations keep many of these details hidden from users. Still, advocates should use informal polls, comment reviews, demographic data, and other techniques to help them understand who their audience is. After understanding their audience a bit better, advocates can use a method, algorithms, share features, targeted ads, to maximize their chances of reaching non-vegans. You just listened to Tactics in Practice, the Science of Social Media Advocacy, Part 1 by Björn Ólafsson at faunalytics.org. I'm Marian Erickson, your host. Tune in tomorrow for the second half of this article, where you'll hear additional ways to improve your social media advocacy. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.